In 1971, I was a soloist in Leonard Bernstein's Mass, which inaugurated the John F. Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. We did a long run there and then recorded it for Columbia Records with Bernstein conducting. Then we moved it to the Philadelphia Academy of Music and finally to the Metropolitan Opera in New York, where we ran for 16 weeks and then did a portion of it on TV. So in 1975, I was feeling pretty chummy with Leonard Bernstein when he announced that he was doing an off-Broadway review of the unknown songs of Leonard Bernstein with a cast of 7. I thought, hey, there are only 7 million singers in Manhattan, so I've got a shot, right? I walked into the fully gutted West Side Arts Theater for my audition, and there on a lumpy old sofa sat Leonard Bernstein, Betty Comden, and Adolph Green. And over in the corner, Bob Calfin, the artistic director of the Chelsea West Side Theater. In those days, I thought the only thing that mattered in life was singing pretty. So I sang Jerome Kern's All the Things You Are and ended it with a floaty high note at the end. The note was still hanging there in the air when Bob Calfin yelled out, "Do you know any jokes?" After I pulled myself together, I said, "Conductor says to the gal singer, tonight, when we do Just in Time, could you start it in 4/4 and then switch to 3/4 and then finish in 7/8? And could you start it in C major and then flip up to F minor and then finish it in E flat diminished?" And the gal singer says, "Oh no, I don't think I can do that." And the conductor says, "Well, you did last night." So that's how I ended up in By Bernstein. The show was made up of songs that had been cut from all of Bernstein's musicals, with a book supplied by Comden and Green to tie the whole thing together. The cast included Janie Sell, who just won the Tony for Over Here, Patricia Elliott, who just won the Tony for A Little Night Music, Ted Thurston, who'd done 20 Broadway shows, and a couple of newcomers, including yours truly. Leonard Bernstein, Betty Comden, and Adolph Green were all crammed into this tiny little off-Broadway theater with us all day, every day. It was intimidating. Very early on, the whole cast went to a little Chinese restaurant for lunch, and we were all chattering about how nervous we were about being fired. Ted Thurston, the elder statesman of the group, said, "Oh, you young people, you're all so wonderful. Nobody's getting fired." We came back from lunch, walked into the theater, and Ted was fired. That is showbiz. Janie Sell and Patricia Elliott were the kind of actors who liked to say they didn't really sing, but then they'd go out there and knock your socks off. Janie Sell had a number that had been cut from On the Town. It was verse after verse about how she'd lost her latest boyfriend, and then she'd sing, "Well, that's the story of my life." Patricia Elliott killed in a torch song that had been cut from Wonderful Town. "Ain't got no tears left, I've been crying so long. Can't weep for joy, can't weep for sorrow." And then Margie Cohen and I sang a sweet little number that had been cut from Peter Pan. "Dream with me tonight, tonight and every night, wherever you may chance to be. Close your lovely eyes and dream with me." And then I sang a sweet little number about venereal disease that had been cut from Candide. Ring around a rosy, ring around a rosy, ring around a rosy, once again. She is dead, my poor darling Paquette, still she's living with me yet. Oh, my darling Paquette, she is haunting me yet with a dear souvenir I shall never forget. 'Twas a gift that she got from a seafaring Scot. He received, she believed, in Charlotte. And then the whole company sang a number that had been excised from the Caucasian chalk circle. The Song of the Chinese Coolie, all the more racially insensitive given that Pacific Overtures was just about to open down the street with actual Asians. I began to suspect that the entire creative team might be hitting the sauce. The book by Condon and Green sounded more appropriate for a 1950s cocktail party than for a hip, edgy new musical. One morning, Betty Comden came in very early, all sprayed and painted, wearing a beautiful tailored business suit, but it was obvious that she'd had quite a night of it. She stepped up onto the lip of the stage to address the company, put one finger in the air, and went right over backwards like a cartoon character. Boy, oi, 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 oi. Before anyone could react, she leapt back to her feet, put her finger back in the air, and resumed speaking as if it had never happened, and she never spoke of it again. Old school. Bernstein was at the height of his fame and hedonism, so he had a handsome young Yale grad student following him around with a silver tray of scotch and ice. A silver tray. I am not kidding. That was his job. Oh, and a silver cigarette lighter. Bernstein couldn't stop smoking for a second. There were times when the West Side Arts Center looked more like Brigadoon. But the producers spared no expense transforming that space into a glittering 1930s nightclub. They even came up with these brilliant programs, which were giant matchbooks, and when you opened them, our names were written on the individual matches. So clever. I didn't save mine, but I managed to find this one on eBay for only $15. I should have saved 100 of them. The whole thing was so glittering, with the press constantly sweeping in to take photos of Bernstein and Comden and Green for the opening of this brand new space and this brand new Bernstein piece. I actually managed to forget how the critics always treated Lenny. If he wrote symphonies, they said he should be writing musicals. If he wrote musicals, they said he should be writing operas. The Mass got killed for opening the Kennedy Center, and that was a monumental work. So true to form, they attacked Lenny by Bernstein for recycling old songs instead of writing new ones. They didn't so much bash us as dismiss us altogether. So 17 days later, that glittering 1930s nightclub was tossed out onto West 43rd Street. Unemployed, I got a ticket for Pacific Overtures at the Winter Garden Theater. I walked into the lobby, and there was Bernstein, with a large entourage of which I was not included. I've never felt so left out. But just then Lenny yelled out, "Hey, Ed! Sorry about that." And that was the end of me and by Bernstein.